finished, but take a few minutes to pray. Let's hop on Mincha. If you're stuck on the highway, just pull over sideways and pray.
Good morning to everyone. We're starting a new series today on what I call Mincha scenarios. As everybody knows, Shachris is something you usually daven before you start your day, Maariv towards the end of the day, but Mincha is stuck in the middle, and I think it deserves a little bit of attention. And let's begin right from the beginning, because this is the question that most people ask about Mincha. When is the cutoff time? When is the last time you can possibly daven Mincha? So we go in this question not to any rocket science. We go directly to a Mishnah in Masechet Brachot at the beginning of the fourth parak, in which the majority view says, and I quote, Ad ha'erev, until the evening, and Rabbi Yehuda says until a time called Plag HaMincha, about an hour and a quarter before sunset. The Gemara basically explains that both had a disagreement what happened in the temple with the Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim, the sacrifice upon which the times of Mincha have been patterned. One said it was indeed sacrifice until the evening, and the other said only until Plag HaMincha. This is one of the rare cases that the Gemara does not come to any conclusion. It doesn't paskin like the majority view, it doesn't even paskin like the minority view, but rather it's something that we almost never have, and that is, and I quote, the lo itmar ilchata lo kemar velo kemar, because the halacha is not like neither the majority view nor like Rabbi Yehuda, the avad kemar avad, the amad kemar avad. You can do whatever you want. Pick any point of view you want. Either have the cutoff time at what we call Erev, we'll have to define that, or at Plag HaMincha. Now comes the question. What did the Gemara mean? Pick any time. Does it mean pick any time forever? Or pick any time that particular day? Or does it mean you don't have to pick, as a matter of fact? You can daven Mincha in accordance with the Chachamim, namely until Erev, and then you can daven Maariv in accordance with Rabbi Yehuda. So those are the three options we have. In the poskim, we have the first two options. And what's interesting is that it happens to be one of those cases, not only is there no halacha in the Gemara as to who to paskin like, it's one of those cases in which the halacha seems to be one way, but Am Yisrael seems to do the other way, and I'll explain in a minute. Comes along Rav Hai Gaon, one of the Gaonim, and says, Lam! If you picked that, for example, you're going to have the cutoff time at Plag HaMincha, then you better do that your entire life. You can't go ahead and say, one day I'll be a Rabbi Yehudanik, the next day I'll be a Chachamimnik. No, for the rest of your life you have to make a determination which of the 2 points of view you're going to do like. He's not alone. Rabbeinu Yonah, who has a parish on the reef in the back of the Gemara in Masechet Brachot, says exactly the same thing. It's impossible for someone to have a minhag that the next day it will be against his minhag. Namely, one day like Rabbi Yehuda, one day like Chachamim. Absolutely not. If indeed one day you daven mincha up until Shkia, say, and the next day you daven only until Plag HaMincha, and you say that's the cutoff time, that's not right. Either the time from Plag HaMincha to Shkia is already nighttime, it's Maariv time, because the cutoff time is at Plag HaMincha, or it's not yet nighttime in accordance with the Chachamim. But you can't go ahead and have one day be against the next day. And therefore he says, Kol sha'a kemo Rabbanan. You should do every single day like Rabbanan or like Rabbi Yehuda. And what's interesting is, this is the way the Shulchan Aruch paskins, that you can pick either Rabbi Yehuda or the Chachamim, namely have your cutoff time at Erev or at Plag HaMincha, but you better do that every single day of your life. Just in case we didn't understand it, the Mishnah Berurah comes along and says, Shelo yinhog pam kach ufam kach. It's impossible to go ahead and pick and choose even from day to day. Mishum dahavitarte desatreya filo lemachar, because from one day to another it is an internal contradiction. And the Levush, before the Mishnah Berurah, paskins the same way. V'hushia said le'olam kechad minau, she'imasa pam echad kerabanan, u'mitpalel mincha ad alayla, shuv eno yachol litpalel arvit miplag HaMincha. That if you decided that the majority view is correct, and your cutoff time, say, is Erev Shkia, I'm just putting it out there, then you cannot the next day go and say, no, my cutoff time is like Rabbi Yehuda, I'm going to daven Maariv right after Plag HaMincha. If we go according to this point of view, from Rav Hai Gaon to Rabbeinu Yonah to the Shulchan Aruch, as explained by the Mishnah Berurah and the Levush, then there's no such thing as an early Shabbos. You cannot do an early Shabbos in the summer and a regular Shabbos in the winter, because you cannot pick and choose. You have to choose something for the rest of your life. Well, how do we do an early Shabbos? There is a descending point of view. I will tell you right off, it is not the majority point of view. It is not the view Paskin and Shulchan Aruch, but it is a view. And that is the Me'iri. We didn't have a Me'iri for many years. Maybe that's the reason why this point of view is not so much in the classical poskim. But the Me'iri does say that the Gaonim said you have to pick something for the rest of your life, but he doesn't agree with it. Ela biyom echad en ra'ulei litpalel bo mincha v'arvit. Aval miyom liyom en lachush klal. He says, you don't have to pick for the rest of your life. You have to pick that day. That day, if you decide that the cutoff time is Plaga Mincha, for Mincha, and then you daven Maariv after Plaga Mincha, that's fine. What you can't do is that in the same day, you'll daven Mincha way after Plaga Mincha in accordance with the Chachamim, and then make an about face and say, you know what, maybe the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, I'll daven like him. But you don't have to pick something for the rest of your life. So the early Shabbos have now been saved, because all week long many people daven in accordance with the Chachamim, namely they daven until Shkia, or whatever Erev means, and then on Friday nights they sometimes do an early Shabbos, but on that day they're consistent in accordance with the Me'iri. The Aruch HaShulchan, Rav Epstein, comes along and says the same thing. Nira, di'im b'yom echad yitpalel mincha v'arvit b'plaga mincha, lo yatsa, dahavet harta desatri b'yom echad. On the same day, you can't go ahead and pick and choose, but on 2 different days, it's not a problem. And the Minchas Yitzchak comes along and paskins this way as well. He, of course, was a rabbi in Manchester, where the times there are very late in the summer, so obviously he had to deal with this on a very practical level, and ultimately says, on a very long day, and in England they have very long days. If you want to indeed do it properly, there's 2 times. One is Aliba the Rabbi Yehuda. You can do like Rabbi Yehuda. And number 2 is Aliba the Rabbanan. And indeed, he doesn't say that you have to pick for your whole life. So what comes out is, even though there's no psak halacha in the Gemara, and we can pick either Rabbi Yehuda, who says Plaga Mincha is the cutoff time, which means Maariv is right after Plaga Mincha, or the Chachamim who say Ada Erev, which means Maariv is only after the time called Erev. The majority of poskim said you better pick for the rest of your life which one you go by. You can't go from day to day and decide, pick and choose. But there is a Me'iri, an Aruch HaShulchan, and it seems like Am Yisrael did paskin that way, because around the world there is early Shabboses, where people all week long paskin like Rabbanan, but on Friday night paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. So it's one of those rare cases that there's no psak halacha, but it's even more rare that even though the majority of poskim say you better pick and choose one point of view for their whole life, it seems like Am Yisrael paskind, no, you can pick and choose from day to day.